My name is Ingrid Fairbanks Webb, and I am 34 years old. 4 years ago, the night before Mother's Day, I realized I had been erased from my own family. I was removed from our WhatsApp group without a word, like a stranger, like someone who had never truly belonged. My mother's message to my siblings left no room for interpretation. All my children are successful except Ingrid. She chose to be a lowly teacher. I no longer see her as my daughter. I did not scream or call her in tears. I did not argue. I simply disappeared, exactly as she wanted. What my mother did not know was that 4 years later, I would be standing on a stage in front of 500 people, shaking hands with the governor of Virginia, while she sat in the audience, uninvited, waiting for recognition that would never come. Before I explain how that happened, take a moment to like and subscribe if this story resonates with you. Where are you watching from right now? And what time is it where you are? Let me begin at the start. The night I understood that the family I believed I had was gone and that I would need to build a different one for myself. Growing up, the Fairbanks family was considered picture perfect in our Virginia suburb. My mother, Margaret Fairbanks, retired from her role as a regional bank manager at 55, not because she needed rest, but because she had secured her long-awaited place at the Westbrook Country Club. The membership alone cost more than my yearly income. She wore Hermes scarves like armor, always arranged just right, always in muted colors that suggested old money, even though our wealth was barely a generation deep. My sister Victoria was the pride of the family. At 38, she was a plastic surgeon in Richmond, serving local news anchors and politicians' wives. She posted casual photos of her Rolex on restaurant tables, her manicured hands holding champagne glasses at charity galas. Every Thanksgiving, she updated us on her latest cosmetic procedures, as if the changes around her eyes and lips were not already obvious. Then there was my brother Bradley, 40, a corporate lawyer in Washington, D.C., who drove a Mercedes G-Wagon and made sure it was parked where everyone could see it at family events. His wife, Carolyn, collected designer handbags with careful precision, always searching for the next limited edition. And then there was me, Ingrid, the youngest, the one who never fit into the family's image. I was a fourth-grade teacher at Maple Creek Elementary, a small school surrounded by farmland about 90 miles from my mother's carefully maintained colonial home. I drove a 12-year-old Honda Civic. My apartment was smaller than Victoria's walk-in closet. What was never acknowledged at those country club gatherings was this. My mother had two successful children, a doctor and a lawyer. Not three. Never three. I did not choose teaching because I lacked options. When I finished high school, I had a 4.1 GPA and a full scholarship offer to study pre-med at UVA, the same path Victoria had taken years earlier. My mother had already bought the future doctor bumper sticker. She had told everyone at the club. My future was planned. That summer, however, I volunteered at a literacy camp for underprivileged children in our county. There was an 8-year-old boy, Marcus Jr., who could not read beyond a first-grade level and had been told repeatedly that he was slow. By August, he was reading chapter books. The day he finished Charlotte's Web on his own, he hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. That was the moment I knew. I called my mother that night and told her I was declining the pre-med scholarship. I said I was going to study education and become an elementary school teacher. There was silence for 17 seconds. I counted them. Then she said, "You're throwing your life away. For what? A government salary and ungrateful children." She did not attend my college graduation, claiming she had a scheduling conflict, a garden party at the club. Victoria sent a card with a $50 check and a note that read, "Good luck with your little career." I cashed the check because I needed groceries, but I never forgot the message underneath. You chose wrong. You chose less. I did not choose poverty. I chose purpose. To my mother, those were the same thing. The exclusion did not happen suddenly. It spread slowly, like mold in a room no one wanted to clean. At Thanksgiving in 2019, I arrived with a homemade sweet potato casserole, my grandmother Ruth's recipe. In the dining room, my place card was set at a small folding table in the corner, alongside Victoria's stepchildren and Bradley's toddler nephew. My mother adjusted her pearl earrings and said, "We just ran out of room at the main table. You don't mind, do you? You're so good with children." I was 30 years old. Christmas was worse. I spent 3 weeks knitting my mother a cashmere scarf in her favorite shade of gray. When she opened it, she smiled thinly and said, "How handmade," before turning to Victoria's Chanel clutch and praising it for 20 minutes. I later found my scarf in the coat closet, still wrapped, the tags I had removed tucked back inside. The final moment came on her birthday in early 2020. I called to ask what time dinner was. She said the restaurant only had 6 seats. My father, Bradley and Carolyn, Victoria, and her date. "You understand," she said. "Family comes first. 6 seats and none for me." Still, none of that prepared me for what followed. The only person who continued to treat me like I mattered was my cousin Rachel, my Aunt Patricia's daughter. She was 24 then, newly graduated and working her first marketing job. We had always been close. She noticed when I was hurting, even when I tried to hide it. The night before Mother's Day 2020, Rachel called me at 11:47 p.m. Her voice was unsteady. She told me to check WhatsApp. I opened the family group chat and saw that I was no longer part of it. Rachel explained that my mother had asked Victoria to remove me. She sent screenshots. I stared at my mother's words, frozen on the screen, and something inside me went completely quiet. The message read, "All my children will be there. All my successful children. Ingrid chose to be a lowly teacher. I no longer see her as my daughter. Please don't mention her name tomorrow." Victoria responded with a heart emoji. Bradley replied, "Understood, Mom." That was it. I did not cry. I sat on my bed, reading the messages again and again, searching for a different meaning that did not exist. By morning, I made a decision. If my mother wanted me gone, I would leave on my own terms. I blocked her number, then my siblings. I deleted social media. I kept the screenshots. Some records are not meant to be erased. That Mother's Day, I received no calls or messages. For the first time in 30 years, I did not send flowers or make the drive. I made coffee, graded papers, walked by the creek, and chose myself. I would not beg for love from people who saw me as an embarrassment. 6 months later, Rachel called again with news I did not ask for. Thanksgiving photos were online. I told myself I would not look. I lasted 3 hours. The photo showed my mother seated at the head of her formal dining table, with Victoria and Bradley on either side, their spouses positioned neatly behind them. Crystal glasses reflected the light. A large turkey sat in the center. The caption read, "Grateful for my amazing family. Mom, you raised us right." 3 children, not 4. My chair was not left empty. They had simply rearranged everything, as if the table had always been meant for 6 instead of 8. By Christmas, I stopped checking social media altogether. Rachel, however, continued to call. She told me my mother was telling people I was doing volunteer work in Africa, something involving an education nonprofit, very prestigious, unable to come home because I was changing lives overseas. I laughed, the kind of laugh that hurts going down. She was lying to hide the fact that she had disowned me. She was lying so no one would ask questions, so she would not have to admit she had cut off her own daughter for being a teacher. Rachel paused and added that my mother had even told Mrs. Patterson at the club that I had been nominated for an international teaching award in Kenya. I had not left Virginia in 3 years. That was when I understood the truth. My mother did not hate me. She hated what my existence said about her, so she created a version of me she could brag about, a humanitarian she could claim while keeping conveniently distant. The real me, teaching 4th grade 90 miles away, had already been erased. I met Marcus Webb on a Tuesday in October, surrounded by pumpkins and laughing 9-year-olds. His farm, Webb Family Organics, was well known locally, 50 acres of rolling land, heritage vegetables, and a small orchard where families gathered each fall to pick apples and take photos by the red barn. I brought my class there on a field trip to learn about sustainable agriculture. Marcus was waiting near the tractor when the bus arrived, tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes and dirt permanently under his nails. He shook my hand and said I must be Miss Fairbanks, because his daughter had not stopped talking about me. His daughter Lily was 5, with golden curls and an open smile. She was in a colleague's kindergarten class, but I tutored her twice a week after her mother died of cancer the year before. I told him Lily was bright and endlessly curious. Something shifted in his expression, maybe gratitude, maybe recognition. He smiled and said Lily claimed I was her favorite teacher, even though I was not officially hers. That field trip became a phone call. The phone call became coffee, and coffee became a picnic under an old oak tree on his land. Marcus asked about my family, and I told him the truth. I said I did not have one, or that they had decided they no longer had me. He did not press for details. He handed me a slice of apple pie made from his late wife's mother's recipe and said family is not always blood. Sometimes it is the people who stay when others leave. That was when I started to believe him. 2 years passed quickly. It's like pages in a book I was finally writing for myself. In 2022, Marcus and I married, not at a country club and not with hundreds of guests, but under the same oak tree, with Lily as our flower girl and a small group of friends who had become family. That same year, I officially adopted Lily. When the paperwork was finalized, she gave me a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a yellow sun, labeled in uneven letters: my mom, my dad, me. I keep that drawing in my desk. On difficult days, I take it out to remind myself what matters. I completed my master's degree in educational leadership through night classes and summers, writing papers late at night after Lily was asleep, studying during lunch breaks, determined to show that ambition did not require leaving my students behind. When the assistant principal position opened at Maple Creek Elementary, I applied. The interview panel included 3 school board members, one of them Marcus, who recused himself. I was offered the position regardless. Through all of this, I stayed invisible. No social media, no announcements to the family who had erased me. Somewhere in Richmond, my mother continued telling people I was saving children in Africa. Somewhere in D.C., Bradley pretended he never had another sister. Somewhere online, Victoria posted family dinners at tables that would never include me. They had no idea who I had become, and I was not ready to tell them. The call came on a Thursday afternoon in March 2024. The voice on the line was formal and precise, introducing herself as Diana Morrison from the Virginia Department of Education. She said the board had reviewed my application and selected me as the new superintendent of schools for Clark County. I sat down on the edge of my desk, my legs suddenly unsteady. Superintendent was the role I had applied for almost impulsively, never expecting to be chosen. 12 schools, 4,000 students, 200 teachers. I asked if they were certain. She said my record spoke clearly. Literacy rates up 18%, teacher retention the highest in the region, my mentorship program expanding statewide. She added that Dr. Eleanor Hart had personally recommended me, calling me the best educator she had ever worked with. Dr. Hart had been my mentor during my first year and was now the state education commissioner. 2 weeks later, the announcement appeared in the local paper, a small headline with my photo. I assumed my family would never see it. I was wrong. Rachel called that evening, breathless. She said Victoria had posted the article in the family group chat with the caption, "Isn't this our Ingrid?" I asked what my mother said. Rachel told me nothing at first, then admitted she had heard my mother yelling over the phone, furious that I got the job, furious that she had not known, furious that her story about Africa had been exposed. 3 days later, I received an email titled, "From Your Mother." I almost deleted it. It congratulated me, claimed she had always believed in me, and suggested lunch. It mentioned Mother's Day and the importance of being together. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the past 4 years, just an invitation as if nothing had happened. I did not reply. 2 weeks later, an unfamiliar number called. It was Victoria, her voice warm and careful. She said Mom was not feeling well and wanted to see me. I asked what was wrong. She said it was just stress. That night, I called Rachel, who told me my mother had been at the spa the day before. Rachel said plainly that they were reaching out because I had made the news. I already knew, but hearing it confirmed made it settle fully. Have you ever received a reconciliation call like that, where the insincerity is obvious? If so, you know exactly what that feels like. And if you want to know what happened next, keep watching, because what followed at the awards ceremony surprised even me. I wish I could say I never doubted myself, but that would not be true. After Victoria's call, the doubts crept in. At work, colleagues congratulated me constantly, and then came the comments I dreaded about how proud my parents must be. I smiled and changed the subject. That night, I sat at the kitchen table while Marcus cleaned up and Lily worked on homework. He noticed immediately that something was wrong. I told him about Victoria's call and asked if I had been too harsh. I wondered aloud if forgiveness was simply expected when it came to family. Marcus listened, then went to his office and returned with his laptop. He opened a folder labeled with my name and told me he had saved everything. Inside were the screenshots from 4 years earlier, the WhatsApp message, the email with no apology, and the Thanksgiving photo where I was missing. He said he kept them because he knew there would be a moment when I might forget why I walked away. He told me I did not fail, that I survived, and that I built a life without them. He said I did not owe forgiveness to people who never asked for it, only honesty to myself. I closed the laptop and told him Rachel had sent one more thing. He asked if I was sure I wanted to see it. I said yes. He opened a final screenshot from the family group chat, dated the day before. My mother's message announced that I would be honored at the State Teacher of the Year ceremony, that it would be televised, and that the family would attend, sit in the family section, and join me on stage for photos. She instructed Victoria on what to wear and Bradley to bring his wife, calling it an opportunity to show that the Fairbanks family stood united. Victoria's response followed beneath it. I already had my dress picked out. Should I bring flowers? Bradley, I'll clear my schedule. Good PR move. Not once did a single message ask if I wanted them there. Not a word about reconciliation, an apology, or even a private conversation before showing up at the biggest moment of my career. They were planning to hijack my ceremony, Marcus said, voice tight with controlled anger. Walk in like nothing happened. Pose for cameras. Take credit. I read the messages again, slower this time. My mother's words echoed in my head. This is an opportunity. Not I miss my daughter. Not I was wrong. An opportunity to fix her reputation, to reclaim the narrative, to stand beside me in my moment of triumph and pretend she had always been there. They don't want me back, I said, realization settling cold in my chest. They want the version of me they can show off. Marcus nodded. So what are you going to do? I looked at the screenshot one last time. My mother's careful orchestration, my siblings' eager compliance, complete absence of remorse. I'm going to let them come, I said quietly. And then I'm going to tell the truth. That night, we gathered around the kitchen table, Marcus, Rachel on video call, and me, like generals planning a campaign. Rachel suggested uninviting them, calling security if necessary. I shook my head. Then I'd be the villain, the ungrateful daughter bearing her mother from my award ceremony. That's the story they'd tell. So what's the alternative? Marcus asked. Let them waltz in, pretending they'd supported me all along. I had thought about it for hours. No, I said finally. I'll let them come. I won't warn them. I won't confront them. I'll breathe, step onto that stage in front of 500 educators, television cameras, and the governor of Virginia, and thank my family. Rachel froze on the screen. I repeated, I'll thank my family. My husband, Marcus, who believed in me when no one else did. My daughter, Lily, who taught me what unconditional love looks like. And that's it. That's the whole list. Silence hung in the air. You're not going to mention them at all, Marcus said slowly. Why would I? I whispered. They're not my family. They made that clear 4 years ago. I pulled up the screenshot of my mother's WhatsApp message on my phone. I didn't need to expose them. I didn't need to read it aloud. I just needed to not include them. Their absence would speak for itself. And if my mother tried to come on stage? Rachel asked. I smiled. The first real smile in days. Then I'll remind her politely that I'm honoring the boundaries she set. She said I wasn't her daughter anymore. I'm simply taking her at her word. 3 days before the ceremony, Dr. Eleanor Hart called. Ingrid, we need to talk. Her voice was the same no-nonsense tone I remembered from my first year teaching. Something's come up, she said. Someone contacted the ceremony coordinator last week, Margaret Fairbanks, claiming to be your mother. She wanted to speak during the family remarks portion to say a few words about raising you. My grip tightened. I turned it down, I said. Eleanor paused. Ingrid, I don't know your family's full story. I've never asked, but I know you. If you wanted her involved, you'd have mentioned it yourself. I exhaled slowly. Thank you, Eleanor, she continued. I'll introduce you on stage. I'll talk about your achievements, your dedication, your 15 years changing children's lives. Not your family, not who raised you, just what you built. You earned this, she said. Nobody gets to rewrite that story but you. When I hung up, Marcus was watching from the doorway. Your mother tried to get on stage, he said. Eleanor blocked her. She really thinks she can just walk back in. I replied, she thinks she deserves to. That's the difference. The night before the ceremony, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank notepad, a cup of chamomile tea, and 4 years of weight pressing against me. Lily had gone to bed, waving from the doorway. Good luck tomorrow, Mom. You're going to be amazing. Marcus gave me space in the living room. I stared at the blank page. I would like to thank... I paused. Colleagues, Dr. Hart, the board members who believed in me, the students who made every early morning and late night worth it. And then my mother, the woman who erased me from photos, told lies to the world about me, probably planning her outfit, practicing her proud mother's smile. I wrote, I want to thank my family, the family I chose, and the family that chose me back. My husband Marcus, who saw me when I was invisible. My daughter Lily, who taught me that love isn't something you earn, it's something you give freely. That was enough. No mention of the Fairbanks name, no acknowledgement of the people who announced my exile, just the truth. Done, Marcus asked. Done, I said. Tomorrow I would stand in front of 500 people, and for the first time in 4 years, my silence would speak. The Virginia State Capitol loomed as I approached, navy blue dress, Marcus at my side, Lily holding my hand, 500 chairs filled with educators from across the state, 3 news crews, including a live feed. I signed in. Ingrid Fairbanks Webb, 2024 Virginia State Teacher of the Year. Congratulations, the volunteer said. Your family must be proud. I smiled. They are. We sat in the front row, reserved for honorees and immediate families. Lily sat between Marcus and me in her yellow dress, embroidered daisies. Mom, she whispered, tugging my sleeve, is that your name up there? I looked up. A banner stretched across the stage. Virginia State Teacher of the Year 2024, Ingrid Fairbanks Webb. My name impossible to ignore. I squeezed her hand. Yeah, sweetheart, that's my name. I felt eyes on my back. I didn't turn. I knew who sat in the second row, uninvited, waiting for a spotlight that would never shine. I heard them before I saw them. Excuse me, that's my daughter, my mother's voice. Silence fell. I kept my eyes forward. From the corner of my eye, I watched them arrive. Mother in cream Chanel pearls, Victoria in the red Valentino she'd mentioned, Bradley in Tom Ford charcoal, Carolyn trailing in Oscar de la Renta. They took the second row directly behind us. My mother whispered, I raised that girl from birth. Everything she is, she owes to me. Bradley's hand touched my shoulder. Aren't you going to say hello to your family? I turned slightly. My family is sitting right next to me. Then I faced the stage, Lily's small hand warm in mine. When I gave my speech, I thanked everyone who mattered. Dr. Hart, the board, my colleagues, my students, my husband, my daughter. No mention of my mother, Victoria, or Bradley. Their absence said everything. Behind me, I heard a sharp intake of breath, a chair creak. Eleanor smiled. Please welcome your 2024 Virginia State Teacher of the Year, Ingrid Fairbanks Webb. I walked to the podium, 500 faces watching, cameras recording, and in the second row, 4 people waited for an acknowledgement they would never receive. Thank you, Dr. Hart, I began, and thank you to the Virginia Department of Education, the governor's office, and everyone who made today possible. I looked at the real audience. Teachers who spent their weekends grading papers, shaping lives. Principals who stayed late to counsel struggling students. Educators who chose this profession not for money or prestige, but because they believed in a child's potential. When I began teaching 15 years ago, I didn't know if I'd last a semester. The hours were long, the pay modest, and some people, carefully choosing my words, questioned if it was worth it. Silence followed, the kind that hums. But I learned this. Teaching isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about showing up for the kids who need you, especially when no one else does. I took a breath and moved to my thank yous. To my colleagues at Maple Creek Elementary, you are my village. To Dr. Hart, who saw something in me as a nervous 22-year-old with a dream, I owe you more than words can say. I turned to the front row. And to my family, Marcus, my husband, who believed in me when I had stopped believing in myself, and Lily, my daughter, who reminds me daily what unconditional love looks like. That was the list. Behind me, someone in the second row stood. Ingrid. My mother's voice. I didn't turn. Ingrid, sweetheart, surely you didn't forget your own mother. Margaret's tone balanced wounded and commanding, the neglected mother overlooked by her ungrateful child. I heard her heels click as she approached the stage. 500 heads turned, cameras swiveled. She reached the stage steps, cream Chanel catching the light, practiced smile in place. I'd just like to say a few words about my daughter, Mrs. Fairbanks. My voice was calm, quiet, amplified. She stopped mid-sentence, one foot on the first step. Thank you for attending, I said, meeting her eyes for the first time in 4 years. But the family portion of my speech has concluded. Her smile faltered. Ingrid, I'm your mother. You said you no longer saw me as your daughter. 4 years ago, in a group message, you said I chose to be a lowly teacher and I was no longer part of your family. Gasps rippled through the audience. I continued evenly. I've simply honored your decision. The family I thank today is the family that stood by me, the family that didn't require me to prove my worth through a title or salary. A security guard approached Margaret, guiding her back. She stood frozen. For the first time, my mother had nothing to say. Silence lasted 4 seconds before a woman in the middle of the chamber, mid-60s, with simple glasses and a cardigan, began clapping slowly. Another stood, then 5, then 20. The applause built like a wave until every educator in the room was on their feet. 500 people giving me validation my mother never offered. My eyes burned. Lily squeezed my hand. Outside the chamber, after photos with the governor, I saw them approaching. My mother, flanked by Victoria and Bradley, moving through the crowd, believing they were owed an explanation. Ingrid, her voice low now, stripped of performance, we need to talk privately. I kept my tone calm. If you have something to say, Mrs. Fairbanks, say it here. You humiliated me on television, she said. I pulled out my phone, holding up the screenshot that had lived in my camera roll for 4 years. This is your message from May 9th, 2020. I no longer see her as my daughter. I simply honored your decision. My mother's face went pale. I was upset. Context. There is no other context. Bradley stepped forward. Ingrid, let's be reasonable. I have been reasonable for 30 years, I said calmly. Reasonable when you seated me at the children's table. Reasonable when you forgot my graduation. Reasonable when you deemed my career disposable. I tucked the phone away. I'm done being reasonable. Victoria's mask cracked. This is ridiculous, she hissed, her red Valentino dress garish under fluorescent lights. We came here to support you. I kept my voice level. I read your messages, Victoria. Should I bring flowers? That's not support. That's staging. Her face flushed. Bradley tried another approach. Think about PR, he said, calm, lawyer-like. The video is going viral. People are calling Mom. I held up my hand, showing my gold wedding band. I'm a web now. Family names only matter if the family behind them is real. Victoria stepped closer. You think you're better than us, don't you? No, I met her eyes. I'm exactly what I've always been, a teacher. The same teacher you called lowly. The same teacher Mom was embarrassed to mention. I turned to all 3. I didn't become better. You decided I wasn't good enough, and I stopped trying to change your minds. Behind me, Marcus's steady footsteps. Lily's small hand found mine. Ready to go home? He asked. More than ready, I said. I turned to my mother one last time. She looked smaller somehow. The cream Chanel hung differently. Pearls seemed less polished. 4 years of reputation building undone in 3 minutes on a stage she'd never been invited to share. Mrs. Fairbanks, I said quietly, only for her to hear. 4 years ago, you chose your image over your daughter. You chose the opinions of country club women over a child who loved you. Her lip trembled. I could hate you, I continued, but hating you would mean you still control my life. And you don't. Not anymore. I'm not asking for an apology. I've been happy 2 years without it. I want you to understand. I'm doing this not to punish, but because I learned the difference between forgiveness and self-respect to Victoria. I don't think I'm better than you. I just deserve to be loved without conditions. I found that elsewhere, to Bradley. Family names are just words. Family is showing up. You didn't for 4 years. You don't start now. I stepped back, Marcus's hand warm on my back. Lily pressed against me. Goodbye, Mrs. Fairbanks. Victoria, Bradley. I nodded once. I hope you find what you're looking for, but not with me. We walked out without looking back. The fallout was gradual. Rachel called a month later. Mom resigned from the country club committee, she said. Everyone knows why. Women ask questions she couldn't answer. About me, about the speech, about what kind of mother disowns a daughter for being a teacher. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl. And Victoria? She deleted all her family Instagram posts. Every single one. Someone had asked on her practice page if she was the sister who sent a heart emoji when her mother dismissed her sibling. Rachel laughed quietly. Apparently, patients don't like knowing their plastic surgeon responded to family cruelty with an emoji. Response time, 30 seconds. Bradley had gone completely silent. According to Rachel, he told Aunt Patricia that the situation had been blown out of proportion and that he preferred not to discuss it. The professional world has its own ways of handling social missteps. No one was boycotting Victoria's practice or refusing Bradley's firm, but there were whispers, subtle distancing, and side eyes at networking events, the quiet judgment when people realize a polished surface hides something rotten underneath. Rachel added softly, "Your mom's seeing a therapist. She told Aunt Patricia she wants to understand what went wrong." I set down my mug. Good for her. Do I want to know more? Maybe she's actually changing. Maybe. But her change doesn't undo the past. It doesn't obligate me to return. 6 months later, I understood what peace really feels like. Not silence. Our farmhouse was never quiet. Lily practiced piano, stumbling through for Elise with determination. Marcus argued with the tractor in the barn about fuel efficiency. The chickens had opinions about everything, yet beneath the noise was stillness. The kind that comes from knowing exactly where you belong. I was still superintendent. The job was demanding. Budget meetings, personnel conflicts, endless paperwork across 12 schools. But every morning, I saw Lily's crayon drawing pinned above my desk. 3 stick figures, yellow sun, my family. A reminder of what success truly meant. On our 3rd wedding anniversary, Marcus and I had another picnic under the oak tree where we married. Lily helped set up plates of cold fried chicken and Marcus's mother's biscuits. The light turned everything gold. "Someone from a publishing house called last week," Marcus said casually, handing me lemonade. "They want you to write a book about your journey." I shook my head. I don't want to live in the past. Even if it could help others, other teachers made to feel small. I thought about it. If I ever tell this story, I said finally, it will be on my terms. Not for revenge, not for profit, just so someone else knows they're not alone. Lily crawled into my lap, smelling of grass and sunshine. "Tell me a story, Mom." I kissed her head. Once upon a time, there was a teacher who found her family. A letter arrived on a Tuesday in October, almost a year after the ceremony. No return address, just my name in the familiar, elegant cursive my mother had perfected in charm school. I sat at the kitchen table holding the envelope. Marcus joined me silently. "You don't have to open it," he said. I did anyway. 2 handwritten pages on her personalized stationery. ING, I've written this letter 47 times. Each time I tried to explain why I did what I did. But the truth is simpler and uglier. I was afraid. Afraid of judgment. Afraid your choices reflected failures in me. I don't expect forgiveness, not even from myself. I just want you to know I was wrong. I'm sorry for every day you believed you weren't enough. You don't owe me anything. If you ever want to talk, not reconcile, just talk. I'll be here. Your mother, even if that word doesn't mean what it should. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the kitchen drawer. "What will you do?" Marcus asked. I looked at the oak tree, leaves amber in autumn light, and realized I didn't need to know yet. What kept me awake after all this wasn't anger or sadness. It was one question. Why? Why would a mother erase her own child? Why see her daughter as a liability? I spoke to a therapist friend, read, try to understand, not to forgive, but to stop carrying confusion. Here's what I learned about people like my mother. Margaret Fairbanks grew up with transactional love, praise for achievement, withdrawal for failure. Worth equaled performance. By the time she had children, she didn't know any other way to love. When Victoria became a surgeon and Bradley a lawyer, her pride was relief. Their success proved her worth. And then there was me, the daughter who chose meaning over money, a lowly profession exposing her insecurities. Each time someone asked about me, she had to explain. Explanation equals failure. So she removed the part that hurt. It doesn't excuse abandonment, but understanding it helped me see something crucial. Her rejection was about her wounds, not my worth. If you've been in my shoes, you are not responsible for healing those who hurt you. You can understand without excusing. You can have compassion without giving access. Boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you control. If this story resonates, I have a question. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your peace? Comment below, I read every one. And if you want more stories like this, check the link in the description. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I'm Ingrid, and I finally know what family really means.